we've got to talk about some early training camp news. It's been eventful.
Get to talk about some early training camp news.
We do. We get to. We have to. It's kind of a both and.
Yeah, that's true.
But it's been eventful. I mean, like, a lot of headlines already.
Yeah.
In Vikings training camp world.
Even today, there were a couple updates. Today being the 29th of July. So, yeah, I mean, obviously the cornerback position, really the whole defensive back position, has gotten a lot of attention recently. Obviously with the tragic passing of Kyrie Jackson last month, really. Well, this month, I guess, still. But, yeah, that was a big thing that happened to the team, but way less importantly, it was a big thing that happened to the cornerback room, which also had a few injuries happen. We had a kid go down with an ACL tear. Which one? Who?
Mekhi Blackmon.
Mekhi Blackmon, second-round pick from last year, yeah. That's a big loss because he was... I mean, I don't know how good he was going to be, but he was set up to have a big role in the defense.
Kind of rising. Yeah. I think he was on the up and up for sure.
And then one of the bigger free agent signings, Shaquille Griffin. Man, I'm just fumbling all these names right now. Shaquille Griffin, he's kind of been day-to-day with an injury. At this point, you never know. I'm always weary at this time of year when coaches are like, yeah, we'll see how it goes day-to-day, just because however many years ago Daniil Hunter had that quote-unquote day-to-day injury and he never saw the field that year. So you just never know until you figure it out. So I don't know.
I think the defensive back position is definitely one to keep an eye on throughout the rest of training camp and into the preseason because it is already thin, and you've got some guys that need to prove themselves. You got a Caleb Evans and Andrew Booth Jr. who were both on the team last year and could have flashed and didn't really. And so I think those two guys are guys that need to prove themselves through camp and through those preseason games. I would expect them to get some snaps in those preseason games. And, I mean, one or both of them could end up not making the final 53 roster, depending on how things shake out.
Yeah, you could make a definite argument on either of them, both of them not making the team based on ability. But they did sign a few guys in the last few days. Duke Shelley, he's back.
He's back.
I remember being a Duke Shelley fan. We witnessed one of his interceptions at the end of the year 2 years ago in Chicago. He's fun. He's a fun player. He flashed, and he's a fan favorite. But, I mean, if we're being realistic, I don't think we can count on him to be CB1, be an all-pro this year. Obviously, that'd be amazing, and I hope it happens, but there's a reason he was available, so we'll see how he does. They did also sign a couple other cornerbacks. Bobby McCain, who was a former Dolphin and I think Giant. He's got a little bit of Flores familiarity, but he's also got some position flexibility, which is interesting. He also hasn't really done a whole ton, so that's another wait and see how he does. I don't know. And the other guy that they signed, Jacoby Francis, I think he had spent a little bit of time with the Texans. He hasn't really done anything in the NFL. He's still young, but it's not like they went out and signed a big-name guy or traded for somebody, which that's what I'm wanting them to do.
Yeah, yep. And hopefully they do go out and sign somebody. I was just telling you before we started recording, our friend Dustin Baker wrote an article today, and he recommended Stephon Gilmore. I think that would be a good acquisition. He's bounced around a lot. He's never really stuck with one team. But
well, ever since, because what wasn't he? Where was he at forever? Was he a Patriot?
I think, yeah.
He had a good long run at the start of his career, but yeah, he's bounced around ever since, really.
He's older, but yeah, Buffalo actually.
Oh,
and
sure,
then, the Patriots for a while, and then the last 3 years he's been in Carolina, Indianapolis, and Dallas.
And, of course, he was a big part of this greatest comeback in NFL history.
Yeah.
Of course, he was a Colt at the time. But yeah, I mean, he'd at least be a name that people recognize and are like, okay, there's somebody.
But, I mean, you're looking at a, 5-time Pro Bowler, the Defensive Player of the Year in 2019, an All-Pro twice in his career. I mean, he comes with some accolade. Now, that's, several years in the rear view now, but I don't know. He's still got a reputation that he'd bring in, and he could be a Patrick Peterson. He could be a guy that comes in and just he's a great locker room guy, and he's also pretty good on the field and just rallies the troops. And
I mean, you use him as an example, but Patrick Peterson is out there as well still.
Yep.
There's some names out there, and there's probably even some like names that are currently on teams that we wouldn't necessarily think about that might be available via trade. I know the Vikings are kind of they don't have the most robust trade assets in the next few years, so they'd have to get creative. But I mean, they could make a move. Things are always possible, and Kwesi seems like he's good at building a roster so far. So I wouldn't be shocked to see some kind of a like, whoa, trade or big signing or something like that. But so far, we haven't really seen anything.
Can we just talk really quick as a break from like just general training camp news? Could we just mention how amazing it's been that Kwesi has locked up so many of these guys on amazing contracts? Like, that's another big talker that we don't even have on our outline, but holy cow, like all of the drafted rookies are now under contract, and he got JJ on his long-term deal.
Yep.
I'm sorry, Justin Jefferson.
We just need to force ourselves to say Jets now.
Jets, Jettas, whatever. He's locked up for a long-term deal. Christian Darrisaw, which was kind of surprising that it happened as soon as it did, but he's locked into a long-term deal now too. Like, Kwesi's just been making moves, and he's just been rifling those guys through his office and like, let's get this done. Let's put pen to paper and let's make it happen.
Yep. And now Kwesi naysayers will be the first to say, like, well, yeah, but I mean, Spielman drafted Darrisaw and Spielman drafted Justin Jefferson, and Kwesi's just making the right moves and signing the guys that are already drafted. It's not easy to come up with these deals. I mean, there's a reason Jefferson didn't get done until recently. I think because of the Jefferson deal, we were all kind of expecting, like, okay, Darrisaw, that'll be a next summer thing. He's under contract this season and the next season, so the Vikings are showing us what they normally do, so we won't see anything for Darrisaw until maybe next summer. But holy cow, like, I think everybody's happy that he's there for sure. Darrisaw mostly,
Well, and the other interesting thing that's happened, we talked, I don't know, a long time ago, several episodes ago now, about how Justin Jefferson's contract will affect other receivers, and we thought, well, maybe he'll like sign his contract and then CeeDee Lamb will eclipse him or someone else will eclipse him, and it hasn't really happened. And I think it's put other GMs and other receivers in a really tough spot. And you even have Brandon Ayuk in San Francisco who's saying, I want out because I think I deserve more than what you're paying. Even Deebo Samuel isn't locked in yet on a long term, as far as I know. So, like, I don't know. I think where Spielman was playing checkers, Kwesi's playing chess a little bit. He's aware of what's happening in the league and what the market is like. He's also aware of down the road, several years in advance. And that's not to say that Rick Spielman was a bad GM.
He did the job well for a lot of years, and a few times in his career, the Vikings had a chance to do the whole thing.
And I'm not trying to insult his intelligence necessarily, but I do think Kwesi's making some good moves, and I think we're going to see the benefits of that down the road. Some of those things, they're just not an immediate, like, you reap the benefits of a Justin Jefferson contract right now. You reap the benefits of that a few years down the road when hopefully you win a Super Bowl or something, right? And you're
hopefully.
like, yeah, man, I'm glad we locked that guy up before he walked away and got way more money somewhere else, right? So
yeah, it is really nice because I think we can confidently say, like, I have confidence in Kwesi as a GM to make the moves and do the right things. And now we can actually point to things like Jefferson and like Darrisaw and kind of really the whole way this Kirk Cousins and Danielle Hunter situations kind of all played out. So far, before really any games have been played since all of those moves have been happening, so far it seems like they've been good moves. I was a Kirk Cousins guy. I'm still a fan of his. Little sour after the whole departure, but he's a athlete and he gets paid to do a job. and somebody else was willing to pay him more, and that's fine.
He's a really good person.
Mm-hmm. So. But you could argue the Jefferson deal, the Darrisaw deal, some of these draft picks, like, they might not have happened the same way if they had sold the farm to keep Cousins in Minnesota.
For sure.
And there's pros and cons to that hypothetical situation too. You never know. But so far, I'm happy. I just need them to make a move to get a good cornerback and solidify the defensive backfield.
Well, let's talk about another draft pick that the Vikings made, and it seems like he's kind of solidified his roster spot, and that's rookie kicker Will Reichard coming out of Alabama.
Yeah.
So they released John Parker Romo, who they signed pretty quickly after Greg Joseph was released or cut or traded. Or,
I mean, he was one of the first free agents the Vikings signed, was that kicker, John Parker Romo.
And I remember the big talker with him was, he came out of the UFL. He knows these new rules. Kwesi's, again, he's playing chess. He's ahead of everybody else. And now here we are at the end of July, and he's gone. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, and I don't have any opinion on John Parker Romo at all. He seemed like a good dude.
Yeah, for sure.
He'll probably latch on somewhere. But anytime you see a team devote draft capital towards a kicker or punter, a specialist like that, I mean, that Will Reichard probably would have had to have been awful to not win that competition, because getting drafted at all as a kicker kind of wins you that competition.
Sure.
Which, that's no secret. I'm sure the second John Parker Romo saw that draft pick come through, he was like, well, I'm going to battle for my life and then probably lose and hopefully put enough tape out there for somebody else. So, I mean, that's just the way it goes when you draft a kicker. Kind of the same with the punting situation right now, too, for the Vikings. I forget who the guy is that they got to bring in camp, but I know last season was not Wright's best year as a punter, and when that happens, especially when you're on a pedestal like that in a singular position, you're going to get some competition. So maybe you can look up really quick who
Seth Vernon is the other punter on the roster right now. So he's a rookie out of Portland State. Interestingly enough, he's actually older than Ryan Wright.
Interesting.
So he's 25 as a rookie.
So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. It does seem like we have our kicker, hopefully for the foreseeable future. I know Dallas Turner, Will Reichard's college teammate, was pretty happy when he heard that they were going to be teammates in the pros. So we'll see. I guess he's been looking pretty good in camp, just like JJ has been apparently looking pretty darn good in camp.
And by JJ, you mean JJ McCarthy.
The JJ at this point. I mean, we've got Jets or Jefferson, but I guess we have to make this switch to JJ being JJ McCarthy. I guess he's been looking good. I've heard wishy-washy reports on how Sam Darnold's looking. I guess he started off looking good, but even today, in the last couple of days, he's looking a little less great. I don't know. I'm excited to see how this position group plays out.
I mean, you always will see the videos that are this, of people at training camp, and they're oh my gosh, he just completed a pass and it was amazing. And it's one play. All the buzz earlier this last week was Darnold dropping a dime to Justin Jefferson for a touchdown. Okay, that's cool. And then I think in the last couple of days, there was another one of JJ McCarthy dropping one to Jordan Addison for a nice little grab. Just kind of dropped him a dime out of nowhere. All of those things are great and wonderful, and they generate a lot of excitement, but the proof will be in the pudding, right?
Absolutely.
It will come down to who can win games for the Vikings. So I'm still, and I was actually texting with my brother-in-law, who's also a Vikings fan. I was texting with him a little bit ago today, just saying, what are your thoughts on the season? And he said, well, I think they go 1-3 or 1-4 in those first handful of games, and then they change QBs at the bye week. And I said, that's pretty much where I'm at. I think they win 2 of those 5 games.
Interesting.
And switch QBs at the bye week.
You just tipped your hand there, Ev, because we're gonna talk about the schedule the rest of the episode.
That's no secret though, because I've said that on air before. Yeah. But yes, I've held true to my prediction, and you'll see that here in a minute.